live. Good stuff. Just want to welcome you here to this special interview with Ted Kubaitis. I'm going to be talking to Ted about his new software release, CORA Lite SEO software, which is, if you do not know, the lighter version of Cora, which is one of the best SEO software tools out there. And so Ted Kubaitis, I'm just going to read a little bit from my notes here of who Ted is. Ted is from SEO Tool Lab. I met him back at White Hat versus Black Hat in Victoria. He's also part of the SEO Fight Club, which is on weekly with Clint Butler and Kyle Roof. And he's also part of the IMG group, which is also started by Clint and Kyle, along with Ted, which is another phenomenal SEO group. So pretty much every place that you need to find SEO information, somehow Ted appears there. SEO signals. Where else are you, Ted? Hey, you should. You're still not on the screen, so we should pull you up on the screen so everybody can say hi and see your cool background stuff. Good stuff. There's Ted. The beautiful background. So you should just break into song in the middle of this. Feel free. Right. Yeah. Which is a product that I've recommended for quite some time since it first came out, since I first saw it. Yeah. And I've been using it. I love it. It is task heavy, of course, on the computer, but it's also really informative. The information, I still just scrape the iceberg of the information that I need. And that's why I wanted to talk to you today about CORA Lite, because I loaded it up last week, I believe, and started using it. And I instantly liked how it displays your reports, how fast it seems to run, and also that it pulls everything nice and neatly for me in the reports. And so I'm going to, throughout this interview or throughout you sharing what Cora is, open it up for people in the chat. I've got my OBS set up here where I can pull you up in chat. Let me just show that here on the screen. So if you do have a question, you can post it. It'll appear here. Oh, here. right about here. In the feed, I will show it on the screen, and then we can review it together with Ted. Of course, there's a 20-second delay, just so you know. So when you post a question, we may not see it until 20 seconds later. It might be past the point where Ted was talking about something that triggered it, and that's fine. If we may end up, as it flows, we may end up just waiting until the end to answer all the questions. But there may be some really good ones, and I may think of some good ones as we're going through this as well. And Ted's he's got a slide show to show us a little bit about what CORA Lite is, but he's also going to go into the actual program so we can see what it looks like, which is great. Also, just so you know, a little later, I'll be editing this together in a nice compact video for people so they can see how it looks, how I play with it a little bit, and just see how it might be useful to them, either as an SEO or SEO company, or a lone wolf SEO, one-man gang, hello, or even people that are looking just to find out about their own small business or national business. I think it works for pretty much anywhere that you want to target certain key terms in Google search and compare it against your top competitors, and you can select and choose those competitors. So without further ado, Ted, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you present again. If you have anything to throw in your presentation, go ahead and do that. If you think of something that we might be interested in, you can throw that in. Remember, this live stream may go an hour, may go an hour and a half, may go 2 hours. I don't know how much time Ted has. But I'll be formulating something that's more compact later that I'll put up on youtube.com/Arneon for people to look at. And I'll also have the review blog on my website as well. So go for it, Ted.
Yep. So to start, I just want to mention who's attending. I recognize that we have current Cora subscribers and past Cora subscribers, and we also have people who have never heard of it before or who haven't kept up with it, and the last time they heard about it was a long time ago. So if I repeat things that you already know in this presentation, I apologize for that, but at least you know why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'll try to keep it short. So what is Cora? Cora is desktop software for Macs and PCs. It measures SEO factors for your URLs and keywords, and it tells you exactly how much of each factor you need to be competitive with your higher ranking competitors. And Cora uses advanced math to identify which factors appear to influence rankings the most. Now, you don't need to know that math. We're doing it on your behalf. But in these reports, we give you the data so that you can check our work and make sure that we're doing it properly. The advantage of this math, and it's a unique advantage that you only get in Cora, is that it actively adapts to Google updates. So when Google releases an update to their search algorithms, the very next report you run in Cora is going to give you clues about how their preferences for what ranks well have changed. So if all of a sudden Google likes something new, and if we measure it, we'll see it rise in these reports, and we'll go, aha, we need to do that. And there's a lot of other tools out there that do factor measurements, but none of those tools are doing the mathematics for the correlations. So those tools hard code their advice in the same order. They don't adapt to show you Google's new preferences. That's a unique characteristic to what Cora does. So if you've seen those other tools out there and they claim equivalency, the thing that they're not being equivalent on is that math of figuring out what Google prefers. Not what they prefer to recommend, but what Google is actually preferring. And so we'll show you more of that later. So we have two products. We have CORA Lite and Cora. And Cora's been around for a couple of years now, and it's our expert level flagship product. And it's really tailored towards experts. It's overwhelming to a lot of beginners. There's a tremendous amount of information in it. It's fairly expensive. And there's, a steep learning curve. And, not all SEOs can afford it. Not all SEOs are at an expertise level where they could leverage it. Not all SEO problems require expert level diagnostics. So there's a lot of reasons why Cora is just kind of very well respected with very technical and top SEOs. What we wanted to do with Cora Lite is open it up to a broader audience. So we wanted to make it easier to use, faster, cheaper, less intimidating, easier to master. And we feel we've knocked it out of the park with this product, and we think you're going to like it a lot. Some of the key differences, the full version of Cora has up to 2,040 factors that it measures, both on page and off page.
Hey, Ted,
Cora Lite,
just on that point, what are some of the factors that wouldn't be included in Cora Lite? Like, did you look for certain specific things that you would exclude, or?
Yeah, with Cora Lite, we wanted it to be about getting quick wins. So it's largely focused on on-page SEO. So it's only on-page SEO factors. We got rid of a lot of the overly academic and the research factors. In the main Cora, we try to figure out what algorithms Google might be using. So we have factors for those, but they're very academic and they're not things you typically tune for. All that stuff we take out of Cora Lite. We just give you the quick wins. It's on page only. There's none of the APIs because the APIs are all typically advertising or backlink databases, and this is an on-page quick win tool. Cora Lite has HTML reports, and the great thing about the HTML reports is they look cleaner, they look nicer. There's inline documentation, so it's easier to learn from them. They're more self-explanatory, and they're brandable. You can put in your logos, your marketing message, so that if you choose to publish them, email them, print them out, take them in hand to a client, you're ready to go. And so we wanted Cora Lite to be about quick wins and about outreach. And we feel we've really knocked it out of the park with this tool, and it's half the cost. So it's a big price savings over the full Cora. And if you ever need more, if you ever need those expert level diagnostics, you have a place you can go. And, a lot of the time people don't need, full Cora all the time. You may hit one or two situations a year where you need firepower like that. Rest of the year, you can save money. Just go after the quick wins you love. So with that, we'll go into a Cora demo. Let me close this.
This is the stuff I like.
Yeah, you got to show the software.
Yeah, exactly. So the hands-on stuff. That's how you learn, right?
Yeah. This is the user interface for Cora Lite. And if you're familiar with Cora, then this is going to look awfully familiar to you. So it won't feel very different. And our full Cora users get access to Cora Lite as part of the suite. So if you're a full Cora user, you don't need to pick between the two, you get both. But what you do is you pick a mode. I'm going to put it into track domain. So what this means is I want recommendations for a single website. And I'm going to use the desktop index in Google. Not going to specify a country, but I could. But I'm going to leave it no country for now. We could localize to a city and state or a city within a different country. So if I selected Germany, I could type in Berlin here to localize. We could specify our language, and then ultimately the search terms. So I'll put in DUI lawyer Los Angeles, because that's one of my calibration keywords. I know it inside and out.
Quick question on the location again. Did you say you can target larger than cities, so you can go to states?
Yeah, not specifically states. You have to target a country. Actually, you might be able to. I think you can just say California. But it's kind of a crapshoot as to how Google would localize that. I think you're probably better off being specific about which metropolitan area you want it to default to. Yeah. So I would put in a city and state just to be safe.
Yeah, I did run some tests where I was doing just a state. It seemed to work okay, but then I did notice that it was also pulling another city in the same state, or in a different state, by the same name for some of the results. So
yeah. So I would err on the side of being specific if you need to localize. So we ran our keyword search, and we got a snapshot of what URLs were in the results. And by default, it marks everything on page 1 as competitors. But if we didn't like things like Yelp, we could uncheck Yelp, and we could add this one in. We could have more than 10. We could have less than 10. The thing about selecting your competitors is that it it lets us know which websites you want the tuning recommendations to be based on. So you don't necessarily want to tune to a large directory site, because you'll get advice like, oh, you need to add, 32 more phone numbers. Well, if you're not a directory site with business listings, it's going to be really hard to put 32 phone numbers on a page to be competitive. So in cases like that, you might want to remove those sites that aren't like your site. There's two schools of thought on that. One of which is eventually you want to outrank Yelp. And to do that, you're going to have to compete head to head with them. The other school of thought is I only want to target websites like my own because it's easier to get quick wins if I find sites like mine and compete with those. And both are valid points of view. The way I see it is it's long-term and short-term goals, and both have a good reason for being. So our short-term goals is to beat all the smaller sites that are like ours, but our long-term goals are to beat the big directories and the big box stores and things like that. And
yeah, I would argue too that those big box sites a lot of times have an in with Google, so the factors may not even apply on their sites, which can skew things.
It's possible, but I have successfully competed with a number of big sites in the past, Amazon chiefly among them. And it can be done, but it's not always easy. You have to have a lot of resources, and you have to know where they're weak. And, one of the cool things about this technology is you can find out where they're weak. So you pick your competitors, and then you pick in this column that says track, we're going to pick the website we want recommendations for. So I am just going to pick this one here. So this is the website we're trying to rank and we want tuning advice for. And these are the competitors we've chosen that we want recommendations based on. And so once we're all set up, all we do is hit this Get Data button.
Would you recommend that people limit the number of competitors they check there?
I think 10 is usually more than you want. Some people only care about the top 3. I would do the top 10 if you're trying to get to page 1. And I would do top 3 if you're on your way to getting to the top of page 1.
Yeah, what I like about this is it's not hocus pocus. It's pulling data, live data right now that shows you exactly what the difference is in between the site you're trying to rank and the sites that you're competing against. I just think that's one of the things that makes this tool unique in comparison to almost all others.
Yeah, the great part about it is I really try to take my opinions out of the software and just let the data speak. And so if this software is recommending that you add 22 more keywords into heading tags, it's basically because one of the higher ranking competitors you chose has tuned their page to that degree, and that's what you're short. And you can explore the outliers, find out who's pushing it up. You can go and investigate their website, but it's all facts. If you're being told to add 23 more, it's because one of your competitors is using 23 more than you.
Yeah, and there's lots of discretion you can use for how you want to make those changes and which ones you want to focus on. But I do like that you've also made it so that it sorts kind of the most important ones first.
Yeah, by default, we put the strongest factors at the top, the factors that appear to influence rankings the most. And as you go down the list, they'll get incrementally weaker and weaker. And that can help you prioritize which ones you want to address first.
Another good thing about doing this live is we're seeing here how much work it's actually doing. When I compile the video to show, how it is in a bird's eye overview, it's going to be skipping this whole part out, but you can actually see it processing everything right there on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, the last few factors are typically the ones that take the most CPU. And you can turn the completion sound off if you don't like it. I tend to leave it on.
Reminds me of Samsung laundry machines.
Yeah. So alert on complete, that'll turn off the end of report sound if you don't like it. Another important thing when you set up the software and put in your serial key for the first time, you also want to set your output directory so that your reports are saving to a place you know where to find them.
Good point.
So I have a folder called Demo on my desktop. Thought I'd show that. And let me open that folder. And here's our report 733 created today. Let me move that browser window over here. Now the software, when it's done, will, oops, keep opening windows here, 1 second, will show you the report in the software. That's an okay way to view it, but I recommend you just open up the HTML file in a browser. It's a lot easier to use, and you can scale it and do things of that nature. So
I realized that pretty quick.
So it's there for reference, but really, use the reports in a browser and you'll be happier. All of this at the top, this is the default branding. In the software, oops, if I ever stop opening tabs. In the software, oops, got a beach ball of death going on. Let's come back to that in a minute. In the software, you can configure that in the settings, and it'll let you edit this. This is just HTML. You can put in your own logos and images, your own text, your own links, your own embedded videos. If you want to put in tracking pixels, put in tracking pixels, do whatever you want. In this report, you get the roadmap at the top. And on the side here, we have inline documentation that walks you through how to use the report and what everything means. So in this report, you might see something along the lines, let me find a good one, variations in value attributes. So you might say, well, what are variations? And over here on the side, we have that documented. Variations are the words that Google makes bold in the desktop search results. We measure them because they help make your page relevant for the target search term. And down below, we list what all those variations are. So lawyers 10, DUI attorney 10, Los Angeles 10. What those numbers are next to it, that's how many of the competitors you've chosen are using that variation. So you can see which variations are used by all of your competitors and which variations are only used by a few. And then anywhere you see variations over here, we're talking about any combination of those words. So if you have to add 256 more variations in div tags, you can mix it up. You can make it look more natural. It's not all about the exact match. And so we tell you,
in that example of variations in div tags, would that be dealing with attributes of div tags? Like,
No, this is actually text inside of div tags.
okay.
And so that's going to be all your main body content, all your supplemental content, all your navigation, your footer content. All of that is typically in divs.
Right.
And then, we might have things like, oh, what's a leading match? Sometimes you'll see that you need variations or leading matches and, heading tags. Well, we define what that is. It means that the tag starts with the keyword, or making a whole tag. What does that mean? Or entities. We are very fond of entities these days. They're a new powerhouse in SEO, and you might not know what they are. And so we define that. There's inline documentation. Entities are nouns that Google's AI likely understands. The crazy thing about entities is they're kept in public databases, so you can go to those public databases and look up what Google understands. And so that's kind of a new capability for us SEOs. So it's a new playground. And so I list the entities here, and they link to Wikipedia, where you can read about the entity, because all the Wikipedia pages are entities. And so we also have these numbers again. That's how many of the competitors are using each entity. So you can see which entities are used across the board and which aren't. And up here in the report, let's take a look. So entities and sentences, it says to be above average, let's add 121 more. But to take the lead, add 576 more. And that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but we're talking about entities, all of these words, and there are more entities than this. These are just the ones we're recommending. Adding these words into your content a lot of times, into your navigation, into your footer, wherever it's applicable, using these words and getting it up to that threshold. Now, why do we have these two columns? To be above average and to take the lead? Well, if you're just trying to get onto page one, you don't need to do the crazy amount of tuning that you need to do to get to the top of page one. So you just want to be above average for page one. So we recommend that if you're, out on page 3 trying to get to page 1, you start with the above average column. If you're on page 1, if you're number 6, but you want to be number 2, you probably want to start taking the lead. So that's what those are there for. They're very different degrees of tuning, but it lets you pick your poison on what you're trying to do. And again, if we look at this one, we mentioned this one earlier, variations and value attributes. We know what variations are now because it's in the documentation, but what's a value attribute? Well, we click this link and it takes us to the W3 Schools entry for the value attribute. We can read about what it is, and we can see examples of it in use, and we have that inline reference so that we can learn quickly about the things we don't know. And that's one of the great parts of CORA Lite, is how we put everything inline documentation and inline links to reference material. So when you find things you don't know, you can learn about it. So with entities and sentences, it's not a link because, well, there isn't really a reference for what a sentence is. We think that's kind of common knowledge. But the entities we have documented on the sidebar. So no link.
One thing,
JSON?
One thing I noticed on some of the reports I've done is you will have H1 to H3 tags. You need an increase in variations. And then a little bit farther down, it'll say H2 to H6 tags or something like that. And it seems to mention the H tags multiple times in different ways. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, and
I don't think it does on this report, but I've noticed it on other ones.
yeah, in full Cora, definitely you'll see a lot of that. The reason there are factors like that is because there are SEOs out there who claim that Google only cares about H1 and H2, and they don't care about H3 through H6. And so to verify that, we treat H1 and H2 together as a factor of its own to see if it has any ranking advantage over the individual headings. And so we look at those groupings, and that way we can see, is there a grouping of heading tags that's more important than the rest of the headings?
Right. In low competition searches, it may not matter as much, but typically when you're trying to rank a business, you're going to need them.
So yeah, like right here is an example of that. Variations in H1 and H2 tags. We're treating the combination of those two headings as a single factor. And down here we have H1, H2, and H3, treating that separate from H4 through H6. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that when you see variations in H1 tags as a factor, by fixing that one, you're fixing this one at the same time. You don't fix them separately. By fixing one factor,
right,
you're often fixing a dozen
multiple,
or more at the same time. So as I fix H2 tags, I'm also fixing this H1, H2, and H3 at the same time. I'm also fixing the number of keywords and HTML tags. That'll happen at the same time too, because these will be inside the HTML tag. And if those headings are in a div, it'll also fix the variations in div tags at the same time. So what you'll find is by fixing one of these, you're often fixing, a dozen or more. And so as you work, you periodically just got to rerun and get the new updates. And there's different types of reference material in here. I showed you the W3 schools, but the schema goes to the right schema entities out on the web. So those are there. And they often have examples at the bottom of how to implement the schema. So there's a lot of amazing resource here. And again, the strongest factors are at the top, and they get incrementally weaker as you go down the list. And then recently we added a little keyword density block. So we know that the page we're trying to rank has a variation density of 6%. And so that's the keyword density of all of our variations. And we know that the average on page one is about 6.4%. So we're a tad under. I would want to be a tad over. We know in testing that keyword density is a powerful factor. So I always want to be, slightly higher than the competition. And some of these competitors go up to, number 9 here is at 17.5%. So a lot of people believe in over optimization. Well, if they can do it, why can't we? I'm not saying go to 20%, that's ridiculous, but we probably at least want to be in the ballpark of these 7% ones.
Well, and how many arguments are there out there on that fact that Google
Millions.
No longer likes any kind of keyword stuffing, but the testing all shows no. You can almost put in as much as you want and it's not going to affect it. Unless, you can't be ridiculous, of course. But
in testing, we went all the way up to 95% keyword density, and Google indexed and ranked them all. And in that test, Google sorted them descending by keyword density. So 95% was at the top, then 90, then 85, then 80, then 75. Just put it right in descending order for us. Now that's the first test we have new testers do, because we want to know that they're testing properly, so we give them something we know the outcome of. And B, we want to prove to them that testing works. And now we often say that keyword density is the most heavily tested SEO factor ever.
Yeah, good point.
Below the density, we have the competitive comparison. This is where all of your measurement data resides. So if you want to look at the measurement data, it's here. And this will allow you to explore outliers if you think if funny business is going on. So you see up here, we have the result number in Google, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You'll remember we unchecked Yelp and checked something else instead. So that's reflected here. You can click those to visit those search result pages. Our result page is clickable here in the headings. And we can see what our factor measurements were, the average based on the competitors, the maximum based on the competitors, each competitor, and then the correlation coefficient. So this is the factor strength that we're using to sort the factors. And so we have all the measurement data here. And then the search results snapshot below contains a snapshot of what the search results were like at the time the report was written. So with this, there's a few things that I like to see at a glance with this data. I often just look at it whenever I'm working with a new keyword, because I can see at a glance, oh, there's a lot of EMDs and exact match domains and partial match domains. I can see that up and down here that there's a lot of them. I can also see that there's a number of home pages ranking. There's a search page ranking. There's a number of nested category pages. Oftentimes by looking at the URL, you can identify, are they category pages? Are they product pages? Are they blog posts? Things of that nature. And then also, are there any sentiment words? Like Yelp is notorious for doubling up on sentiment keywords. So top 10 best DUI lawyers in Los Angeles, California. They got 2 sentiment words early in the title. So we can see, any patterns in sentiment, leading keyword matches, DUI lawyer, DUI lawyers, Los Angeles DUI lawyer, best Los Angeles, DUI attorneys. So you can get a lot of information at a glance just looking at the result snapshot. And then, of course, you can customize the footer. I just put an image graphic at the bottom. But that's customizable as well.
Which is beneficial if you're running reports to distribute to your clients, right?
Yes. And then, let's see, I've still got a beach ball because I clicked things. Let me restart this real quick and I'll show you the next thing.
Sure.
No presentation goes unpunished.
Well, not having audio for the first half is great too.
Because the next thing I want to show you is a different mode of Cora Lite. Well, let me show you the customization first. So we have notes on branding. These are wildcards you can use in the template to access types of data you may be interested in putting into your template. You don't have to use these, totally optional. And we support basic spin tags. So if you want your reports to spin the content so it's not duplicate, you can use that templating as well. There's a head tag, so if you want to put it in your Google Analytics or verification codes or other tag manager things, you can do all of that, customize the title, the meta description, things of that nature. Then the HTML header at the top of the page, you'll remember I had my iframe with YouTube. There it is. There's that YouTube embed. I have my logo right here. It's just an image tag. So you just make the HTML, put it in there, and bam, you've branded it. And again, that footer, I mentioned I just have an image at the bottom to make it look pretty.
So that would be great to present to a client, and then you can, in the little video, you can have a little explanation video, just real quick, saying what you plan to do for them based off of this information. Yep.
Exactly. But there's a whole another mode to this, and that's the all results mode. And it works exactly the same way you saw before, except you set this to all results. And what this does is when you run your report, it'll create a report for every URL in the top 100 results. It'll do all 100 reports in one go.
So you may need to wait a little longer for this one.
Yeah, I'm not going to run this one live. I have some that are already run in this folder. But yeah, it runs a bit longer, but it gives you 100 reports at a time, which is awesome if you're doing outreach. Because you can have your marketing message in that report because of the branding you're putting in. You can say, hey, we found that you have a lot of deficits. We would love to help you knock them out so that you can rank better faster. Give us a call, let us know. Cool thing is you can email it to them, or you could host it. And the next time they vanity search their domain name, if they're not a huge brand or something, they're likely to find it vanity searching their domain. So cool. You can do passive outreach with it too, just by hosting these reports.
Interesting.
Yeah. And if you do SEO on these, you can do a lot of cool things. And using these template codes, they let you do cool things. Like you can, the track domain, you can refer to it often in your text. So if you want to make sure the domain is in there, 37 times on page, so your template is super relevant for the domain name when they vanity search it, that's how you do it. But it'll dynamically plug it in if you use that code in the template. But let me show you some of those.
Yeah, an example would be great.
Yeah, so when you run in all results mode, it creates a folder based on the date. And then in that folder will be a keyword for that date. And then in there, you'll see a report for each URL, each result number, all the way to 100. So you get 100 in there, and we can look at one. Let's look at one in the middle because they tend to be more interesting.
Did I just see Neil Patel?
Yeah, it's for SEO software.
Okay.
Bring it over. So again, my branded report is on all of them. And so we have these reports. There's one subtle difference on these reports is that we cross-link all of them in the search result snapshot. So if you upload them all, they're all link-wheeled to each other for extra boost. So you have your navigation. You can hop between the reports by clicking these. And that's a great way to do outreach. I did this for a website. What did I call it? It was my-seo.info. And I used this tool over the course of 2 days to create 10,000 free Cora reports where I took every keyword, Garland SEO, Des Moines SEO, Albuquerque SEO, Anchorage SEO. It just went down the list of all the biggest cities, got 10,000 reports on all these city SEO combinations, and I hosted them. You can go to this URL, this my-seo.info URL, and there's 10,000 example reports. So if you're an SEO agency and you do city SEO in a major city, you can probably go find your business. Where's Clint's business? Over the top SEO. What market was that? That's Bakersfield SEO. There's Clint's. Here's Clint's report. So if you're an SEO in one of the cities I covered, you can go look up your report for your agency, kick the tires, see if it's any good or not. So you got 10,000 example reports right there. So my-seo.info.
Nice.
Did
you just FTP them up?
Yeah. There's another cool feature. So if I go to this URL, let me go to the top. At the top, I have this master index of all of the markets I did.
Oh yeah, like a site map.
And there it is. In the settings in Cora Lite, there's a build index. If you point at that date folder and put in your stem URL, in this case, my-seo.info, it'll generate the index for you too. And then you just upload it all to the server and it's ready to go.
Cool.
And so, yeah, that's my presentation. I think we'll go to questions or anything like
that. I had a question pop into my mind here too, but I have to find something I saw on your site. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. I'll let your face appear on the screen again. How about that?
Okay. Of course, I do have your coupon code up.
Oh, hey, well, let's leave that there for a bit. Yeah, actually, thanks for doing that again. I wasn't expecting it necessarily. Like last time, you kind of did it. I had no idea you were going to do it. But
so Cora Lite is half the cost of full Cora. So Cora Lite is $125 a month, and using this coupon code will save you another 10% on top of that every month. So the savings continue.
Yeah, excellent. So let's just go right to your site. SEO Tool Lab. Oh, it was the SEO Editor, which is a product that it says is not available yet.
It was available for a while. It was kind of an experiment. It was an experiment on two fronts. I wanted to make an editor, a text editor, that was useful for SEO. And there's two ways a text editor can be useful for SEO. It can either A, help you easily make awesome content, or B, it can do analysis of your content and tell you how to make it better. But what it can't do well is both. And I tried to make it, and I tried to crack the nut on doing both. And what I found out from my customers is in a text editor, they really didn't want the SEO analysis part. They want the super easy methods of creating awesome content quickly. And so based on what I learned, I'm pivoting the software to focus on making content easily and quickly. And so when it relaunches, it's going to be a lot faster and a lot more targeted to very easily doing list style articles of authoritative content. And the way that product works, it works a lot like CORA Lite. You enter in a keyword, I'm looking for writing an article on types of backlinks, and it'll prime the editor with content. And you can say, show me all the H2 headings or show me all the headings, because those things are going to list out all the types of backlinks. I'll pick and choose which ones I want, convert them to, an LI list. Let's add in a bunch of commonly asked questions. Let's throw in the search results so I can cite my sources. Bam, I'm done. And It's just push button fast. So that's what we're going with when we're trying to make a text editor that lets you create content easily and quickly, and authoritative content.
Yeah.
I used it this morning, and I often rewrite the same article over and over to find out if I'm doing better. So in the previous version, in about 30 minutes, I was able to make a list article that contained about 215 types of backlinks. In the latest version, in that same amount of time, it has about 450 types of backlinks. So I'm getting more authoritative list articles in the same amount of time, and that's how I'm gauging the efficiency.
So is this going to be launched as a separate prescription or subscription, I should say?
It's probably going to be like Cora, or Cora Lite rather, where you can buy it a la carte.
Right.
You can subscribe to it a la carte. Or if you get full Cora, I'm probably going to throw it into the suite for full Cora users. So no extra cost if you're a full Cora user.
Oh, cool. And one of the things that doesn't happen on CORA Lite or on Cora is backlink checks. Like you focus totally on on-page stuff.
Well, with full Cora, if you use the DOM detailer, Ahrefs, or SEMrush APIs, you'll get backlink data. We don't tell you which backlinks to get, but we tell you how many backlinks you need to be competitive.
Right. One other thing that I was going to ask you about was SSL versus non-SSL information on domains that you're competing against. I notice that's not in the report.
It pretty much is a cost of doing business these days. Just about everybody does it, and when just about everybody does it, it never correlates. So we actually have factors for it, but because everybody does it, it's never a top correlating factor. And the mathematical reason is that if it, for all practical purposes, if the data could be a random outcome, we can't say it's a strong correlation. If there's a high likelihood that it could be a random outcome, we can't say it's a strong correlation. And so if they're all pegged at 1, if it's 1 across the board and they all have the same correlation coefficient, that could technically be a random ordering. It doesn't appear to be sorted by that in a way that we can tell. And so with that, it becomes inconclusive. It's not that it's not a ranking factor, it's that we can't show it with the data because everybody does it, and that doesn't tell us with the data. And there are a few things like that, everybody is using hypertext protocol, so that would have no correlation as well.
Right.
Everybody's pages contain HTML, so that has no correlation.
But at least with HTTPS, you may find that 4 of your competitors don't have it, and maybe they rank lower. Like you're saying, there's no visible correlation between that and ranking.
Yeah, that's extremely uncommon in high competition keywords. So you would have
Yeah.
to have a very low competition keyword for that to become an emergent pattern.
Okay, interesting. Cool stuff.
But there are factors for it. So, uh, if you are in those low competition keywords, you may see that appear.
Right. Okay. Another question was: is the data from CORA Lite still contributing to the back-end data that you're collecting?
No,
Okay.
the Cora Lite is not sharing data.
Okay. Interesting. So, if too many people use CORA Lite, it might be a bad thing.
Well, it's a small subset of the factors, so I don't want to over-represent on page.
Right. Good
So
idea.
the best way to handle that was to have Cora Lite not participate in the shared data.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Excellent. Let me just see if we got any questions. I think we're good here. So, Ted. I was going to mention too with your discount code there. You had a long URL that you posted up there on the screen. They can actually just go to SEO Tool Lab slash
Yeah, just
Cora Lite PHP, I think it is, right?
yeah, all you need to do is use this coupon code at checkout. So just go to SEOtoollab.com, find the Cora Lite page, go to checkout. It'll take you to ThriveCart. If you enter in this coupon code, it gives you the discount. And that also helps support this community. So I highly recommend you do it because this is an awesome community.
Yeah, for sure. Excellent. Well, Ted, once again, I want to thank you. Any final words you want to share?
If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at IMG or on Skype or via the website. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to do demos if you want to show it to your coworkers. That's all fine. And be safe. And thank you so much for your time and this opportunity to share what we're doing.
Absolutely. Anytime. In fact, when you're saying Cora 6 comes out, we'll be talking again then. I was going to say, so how is business actually going with Cora?
It's going much better now. In the early months of COVID-19, we took our lumps just like everybody. And,
Yeah.
all of our customers are SEOs. And when SEOs hit hard times, we hit hard times.
Yeah.
So that's just how it goes. But it looks like everybody's rebounding and business is going up. We actually pivoted with Cora Lite in response to COVID-19. It was a COVID strategy, and it's been a wildly popular one. So people appreciate the lower cost and the quick wins and the outreach.
Yeah, for sure. Excellent. I appreciate it too.
Thank you.
So thanks again, Ted. I do appreciate that you came on, and I will be posting a review on my blog site as well, which will be arnion.com/Cora Lite, and it'll interlink with my Cora review as well. And on that, I'll have this live interview as well as a more compact version for everybody to just kind of be able to see in a nutshell what Cora Lite is and how it compares and stuff like that. So good stuff. Thanks again, Ted.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone.
Take care out there, folks. Keep safe. Social distancing, but not too much.